Constantine The HellBlazer, Walk of Shame by Ming Doyle and James Tinian, IV. Writers, the artist is Riley Rosmo, the colorist is Ivan Plasencia, the letterer is Tom Napolitano, the cover was done by Riley Rosmo, the variant cover was done by Erica Henderson, the group editor is Brian Cunningham, the assistant editor is Amendo Turturro, and the editor is Andy Corey. And I really didn't want to do that, but I figured you might need the information if you ever want to buy the issue now. How do I feel about Constantine number 2? Well, I didn't like the first issue, and the reason why I didn't like the first issue was because while I knew what they were going for, they didn't really do it that well, because their introduction to the character has to do a lot with them, forcing certain scenes onto the character. Frankly, the monologues are a bit arrogant and not in a likable way. You just don't really, they don't do a good job of making you, or trying to make you like Constantine. Now, the second issue, Doyle improves on some of the problems. It's not a complete fix, but I don't hate it as much. Because in the second issue, he's not really trying so hard to make Constantine seem edgy, which is what I feel was a major detractor from the first issue. Now in the second issue, he continues on with his quest to stop his friends from dying, and while I won't give you any information because read the comic book, let's just say that things get very interesting very quickly for Constantine and his friends as he quests to find out what to do. And it brings up certain interesting things about the character as you learn more about the world in which he lives in and the people around him. And what makes things even more interesting is the fact that he also expands upon the people in his verse and the people that he's interacting with. But I feel that one of the most interesting things about this issue is the fact that it takes place in the DC universe. As a DC universe title, there are people like Superman flying around, Batman is off somewhere in Gotham City, and while they do not reference to or make any sort of appearance in the comic book, I just feel like it makes this whole creepy underbelly type of tone that they're going with Constantine the HellBlazer. It kind of forces it all home because it really is a world that nobody else interacts with. That has its own ecosystem and a bunch of characters that all interact in a way that you wouldn't normally see in the real world. And the fact that there is this DC universe, and then there's Constantine the HellBlazer, it makes Constantine's verse all that more interesting, because it really is something that no one gets into. As a solo title, I understand that many people will say that it was better as just HellBlazer, but I feel like the fact that we see very clearly what people see on the surface makes what we see on Constantine the HellBlazer that much more interesting, because again, you don't see it in any other comic, but in Constantine the HellBlazer, it's also vivid and real. Now I must say, because for the first issue, nothing major really happened. So in the second issue, things really pick up pace, and the artists can really take advantage of their writing style. And you can tell that they really like drawing monsters a lot more than people. Don't really like how he draws people. But when you begin to see otherworldly beings, that's when you realize that this artist, was the perfect fit for Constantine. Another improvement on Constantine the HellBlazer number 2 was the fact that, again, you're not trying too hard to force anything onto the character or characterize him in any sort of way. You're just continuing on. And while in the first issue I didn't really find his dialogue to be all that interesting, or his thoughts, the narration to be all that interesting, in this second issue, it's very funny and creepy in a strange way. So, if you were iffy on whether or not you were going to buy the second issue, I say continue with it, because I really didn't like the first issue, but I'm really liking the second issue. Now, if there's anything that I could add onto this, I will say that problems from the first issue still pertain. Sometimes I still feel like Constantine is, the writer, is trying a bit too hard to make Constantine seem edgy. But again, it's not to the same extent as it was in the first issue, so it's something that you can glaze over. The art is used, practiced a lot better in the second issue because you can tell that the artist is drawing things that he is actually good at drawing. And the dialogue is a bit funny. It's not overbearing in its creepy nature. So, basically, if you were iffy on the first issue, go with the second issue. And this has been my 6-minute review. I'm Comico. See you later.